Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope you are doing well. Getting ready to record episode 104 of Mike in the Midwest. We're going to talk about Lambert St. Louis International Airport. Let's do that. Here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 104 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Today is Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. It is a beautiful day here in the Westplex out in St. Charles County, Missouri, about 20 miles west of the Gateway Arch here in the Midwest. And hope you are doing well wherever you're tuned into the show, whether it's here around the United States of America or around the world. We are getting ready to celebrate the 4th of July over this coming weekend. Of course, it will be on that Monday, but I'm sure people will get out the fireworks and have the barbecues this weekend. So whatever you do, stay safe, have fun, and just enjoy those friends and family. But today we are going to do what we do. I'll give you a little review of what's going on around here. It has been busy. Go over the feedback from last week's show. We have a little bit of that, and then talk about a topic that is kind of interesting because I have vague memories of this topic, but they're random memories. But I thought maybe you would have not the same memories. You definitely won't have the same memories, but maybe similar memories if you're around my age. And we're going to talk about memories that I have from St. Louis Lambert International Airport. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. But again, I hope you're having a great week. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks again for your support here on Patreon. It does mean a lot. The show does continue to have steady growth. Um, I know that I haven't reported on that lately, and you guys are the ones that I always want to keep in the know as far as what's going on with the show. We're in our 15th year of podcasting. We'll celebrate a solid 15 years next March. And the show does, we're not going to see huge, gigantic, spikes in our growth, but we are still growing in our listenership, which is pretty amazing after, starting in 2008. So we love that. And we love seeing new listeners, new patrons come on. And if you're new to Patreon, thanks for joining us over here. Hope you enjoy these random ramblings as I talk for about 30 or 40 minutes once a week about stuff that probably 90% of the stuff doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you. But it's just kind of the story of my life. If you want know a little bit more about who I am, this is really what it is. Okay. So you can go back and listen to the previous 103 shows, and you're going to get stories about my speed skating, about my teaching, about working at a skating rink, working as a DJ, all kinds of stuff. So I hope you guys kind of enjoy that because, and I mentioned this a couple shows ago, I really enjoy a lot of shows that are really niche podcasts. I love listening to shows, but I really love podcasts that are not necessarily the professionally produced $1 million shows. I like the shows that it's a couple of guys sitting in a garage just talking about old memories. That's why I like a lot of shows that talk about old video games or old board games or just old, nostalgic kind of things. Just recalling old stories from the 70s, 80s, 90s. I love that stuff. And that's kind of what I want to bring to you here. So I hope you kind of enjoy these. I know your memories are not the same, but I hope maybe it'll jog a memory for you and it'll make you think, oh, I remember having, instead all my friends have Pepsi and Coke. And I remember in my town, in my family, we always had vests. We always had the cheap stuff. But you know what? The cheap stuff makes us who we are. It makes us resilient. We never had Pepsi or Coke in my house growing up, and darn it, I grew up better for it. You know what? I appreciate when I get a good Coke Zero. And Lord knows I have a Coke Zero in my hand about every day of my life at this point. I appreciate every can of Coke Zero that I have, and I always look for it on sale. I'm still very frugal. I think because we grew up with very little money that I'm very careful with my money. The Scott and I always have this discussion all the time. That Scott is very, and we actually talk about this, I think we talked about this either on Sunday night's call-in show. I think maybe it was Sunday night's call-in show. I think it was, or Friday's coming up show. Is that, Scott's one of those people that he just goes for it. He's like, go big or go home. I want to make sure I live my life. I don't want to have any regrets. And I love that about Scott. That's awesome. And I try to do that as well. But I'm also more conservative with my money because, I'm also a little bit older than Scott too. I think that's a part of it. And also my parents were very, very conservative with money because we didn't have a lot growing up. And so, and either did my parents. My grandparents were poor. And so it's one of those things like when you don't have a lot growing up, like when you, not that we're rich now, but we're comfortable. We can pay the bills now and I can have a podcast. A podcast does cost a lot of money. That's why this Patreon helps us. It pays the bills for the show. And I'm just so grateful for you all helping us do that. But, it allows us to do fun things like this, not just get by. We get to have a podcast and talk to people all around the world. I can't believe that I have a computer down here in the basement to get to talk to everybody. And I love this because it's made my life immensely better. It's made my friendships. If I didn't have this podcast, my view of the world would seriously be so limited because I wouldn't have the friends in Michigan, in Georgia, in Florida, in California, in Arizona, in Montana. I have friends in Toronto. I have friends in Japan. I have friends in the UK. It's crazy. I would not have that without this podcast. And I hope that maybe what I really like to see on a tangent, and that's what this show, I should have just called it Mike on a Tangent instead of Mike in the Midwest, is that, and I was talking to my wife about this a couple days ago. I was just scrolling through Facebook on Sunday. We just finished lunch and, as we do, we were scrolling through our Facebook feeds and I saw one of our amazing Be Our Guest lizards. She had just finished a half marathon wearing her lizard shirt race. I think it was up in the Northeast somewhere, just proud as could be with her medal at the finish line. And I turned to Pam and I said, how cool is this? Like, that we have this community of runners that are so pushing themselves to these amazing achievements to run a half marathon. And it was a hot day up there to complete a half marathon, to be able to post it. And she posted this picture and she was just happy as pie. Like she had her lizard shirt on, she had her medal, she was at the finish line. She looked way better at a finish than I ever look at a finish. I always look like death. So she's there with her medal, looking great in her lizard shirt. And I saw it, of course, because these shirts pop on social. And I said, how cool is it though, that we have this community of runners? Because the thing is, the Facebook post was about 3 hours old and it had like 39 comments with all these, you are awesome. You did such a great job. What was your pace? What did you like best about the course? You overcame, and everybody knew the story before the race. That was amazing. I love you guys because you guys make friendships within our community, within our podcast. That's the best thing about this show. I mean, I get to have fun and goof with Scott, and we're going to get a listener question. If you're going to be with us this afternoon, because we're recording next week's listener question show, because I'm going to Disneyland. You might have heard that this Saturday. But one of the questions that just came in within the last hour that we're going to answer on next week's listener question show, what does the bell mean? So that's one of the questions we'll get to answer. I mean, I get to have fun and mess around with sound effects and play bells and talk about stuff that I love. That's great. But the joy of this whole ride for me is when I see these real friendships being made. I see people vacationing together that maybe made a connection through the show, going on cruises, staying together at Walt Disney World, going to Disneyland together. I mean, I met Scott through the show. We are brothers from another mother. And I am not kidding. It's amazing. So thank you for, you'd probably do not realize this, but when you support our show, and you do because you're here, you are really impacting a lot of people. The dominoes fall so far down the line, and I am so grateful for you. So just know that I'm always, I don't get to say it enough on the big show because I don't want to go on too much outside of, this. We got to do the ads. We got to do the ad reads. That's kind of a requirement, but I want to tell you here, I love you guys and I appreciate you guys very much. Okay, let's get to what's going on here. So this week, and I posted this post on Twitter yesterday because it hit me. I just finished my run. I got my shower and I was getting my day started on Monday. And I was I ate a little thing of Keebler peanut butter and like peanut butter toast and peanut butter crackers and my Coke Zero as I'm checking my emails and getting my day started. And that morning, on Monday morning, we had to take Mallory to get on the bus to go to high school cheer camp. Now, her high school cheer camp is at Great Wolf Lodge in Kansas City, Kansas. So it's in the other Kansas City and the other state that we don't like to talk about. No, just kidding. We're okay with Kansas, just not UK or KU. UK is Kentucky. Anyway, so just kidding. So here's the thing. She had to be at her high school at 5:00 a.m. to get on this charter bus that they all took. There were 46 cheerleaders because it was the JV and the varsity squad. And I don't know why this didn't hit me until Monday morning that my kid, this is my youngest, this is really my only, like, she's my daughter, right? I mean, Paige is my daughter just as much as Mallory. They're both my kids. But like, I was there the day Mallory was born. Like, I was, I was in the room. And the thing is, it hit me on Monday morning when she, because I got up and she's like, "Dad, you gonna go with us? You gonna get up to say goodbye when I go to cheer camp?" Because she's there until Thursday night. She's gone for 3 nights. This is the first time she's ever been away from us for that long. And I was like, "Of course," because I get up every morning at 5:18 to run. That's my thing. I don't know why 5:18, but I get up at 5:18. And so I was like, "Yeah, I'll get up early. I'll say goodbye, and then your mom will go up to high school. She'll drop you off, and I'll do my run." So I got up, and they have this gear they got to wear. She's got her Howl cheer shirt on, or skirt, because they had to go directly to their first class when they arrived. They didn't even get to go to the rooms. And it just hit me like, oh my gosh. And all the parents out there, maybe you're with me. Like, it just hit me like, my youngest kid is in high school. Like, I'm just now coming to grips with that she was in middle school. That was crazy. I still kind of see her as elementary school Mallory. And she is now in high school. And it has gone so quickly. The middle school years, I mean, I still hardly remember going to her middle school. Like, Brian was her middle school, and it went so extremely fast that I know high school is going to go warp speed, because I loved high school when I was in high school. I was an athlete in high school. I was in National Honor Society. I did everything I could in high school. I was involved in everything. I was an usher at some of the plays. Um, my girlfriend in high school was a pommy, so I was at all her events. It was just one of those things. Like, I was always at everything or participating in those things. And so I loved high school. And so I know that I'm going to enjoy getting to watch Mallory cheer the football games and cheer the basketball games, and, be a part, like, I'm a part of the cheerleading booster club already. And I'm going to enjoy that, but I know it's going to go quickly. So I want to make a note to enjoy that. Also, just a little heads up for you guys. You're the first to know. We're going to have to shift in the fall, starting at the late August until about the end of October. The podcast recordings will move to Tuesday nights instead of Monday nights, because the JV team plays football on Monday nights. So we will record on Tuesdays instead of Mondays for about 8 weeks. And then we'll go back to Mondays, just so you know, because that's Monday night's JV football night. So we got to shift things around just for a few days. Anyway, so I'm excited about that. Mallory is a cheer. Here's the latest news. We just got this breaking news about an hour ago in the parent. There's some kind of like thing called Group Me, I think, for the parents. I'm not on it. Pam is. She just told me that they had to take the phones away from the girls during camp. They will get them back at the end of camp. Can you imagine 46 high school cheerleader girls at the Great Wolf Lodge who all got their phones taken away from them until the end of camp? Salty. I would not want to be around those girls right now. It would be ugly. Can you imagine them eating lunch without phones in their hands? Like, what are they going to do? They're going to have to actually talk to each other, which is the point of why you go to camp. I mean, I went to sports camps. You go there to build teams. You go there to build your relationships with your teammates, not the ones that you're already friends with, but the ones you don't know as well. If you're a pitcher, you don't need to be friends with all the other pitchers and the catchers. You need to start learning who your outfielders are. You need to be friends with the third baseman, because your pitchers and your catchers. That's who you're always hanging with. I don't know exactly how that works with cheerleaders. I guess the flyers and the bases and the back spots I don't know. Who knows? But they got their phones taken away. So I would love to see how salty those cheerleaders are right now, because I just know. Oh my! Can you imagine the senior girls that have boyfriends and all of a sudden their phones got taken away from them? That was a bold move, coaches. Bold move, and I applaud you. All right, so that's what we are right now. Again, we are leaving Saturday morning for Disneyland. Super excited for that. Scott one-upped me and moved his flight up to Friday morning. So he's going to get out to San Diego before me. So watch for him. We have decided on the hashtag, right there. See my hashtag? BOGPATDL. So follow that right now. Follow the hashtag BOGPATDL. and you can see all of our posts and all of our pictures. Everything that we do is going to be on there. We're going to go live on Instagram once we get out there and get together. We may even do a live thing on Facebook because we can do the same thing that we record the podcast on from the Disneyland hotel. We used to do that at Old Key West. So I think we might do that as well, like a little morning show or something. We're going to bring you content. We're going to have fun. So follow along. So Saturday morning, we take off from St. Louis. God willing, everything works out around 11:15 in the morning. We will fly from St. Louis to Denver. I think that takes about an hour and a half to get to Denver. Denver, we have about an hour and a half layover, and then we fly on to Long Beach Airport. And I think that takes about 2 hours. Then we're going to rent a car and drive to Anaheim, and then we'll be there. Then the fun will begin. And who knows what happens that night. We talk about all this on Friday's show. So if you didn't hear us record live yesterday, Friday's show is a ton of fun. We go day by day, all of our reservations, all of our plans, everything we're planning to do. I think you'll really, really like Friday's show. So we had a good time recording that last night. Anyway, let's get to the feedback for last week's show. Last week's show, Talk to Me, Goose. I thought I was pretty clever when I came up with that title, but shout out to Wade because that was something he kept saying a couple weeks ago in the live chat. So this show was suggested by Dr. Kai, and I appreciated that very much. I'm not a person who watches many movies. I've never reviewed a movie or talked about a movie, but I gave it a good shot. And Dr. Kai did say absolutely the perfect take on the movie review for Top Gun Maverick. So I appreciate that, Dr. Kai. Thank you so very much. And thank you for the idea. John Luther says, and also thanks to Dr. Kai, he's a big supporter of everything we do. We could not do what we do without Dr. Kai. He really, really does help support everything we do. I appreciate him so very much. And he's again, he's kind of like my technology guru. Like we love talking Apple, and I love having somebody like Dr. Kai to do that with because he's always a step ahead of me, and he feeds me the best tech articles right into my inbox that I just love because I listen to tech podcasts and I'm always like, yeah, I already knew that because Dr. Kai sent me that article. I'm a couple days ahead of even the tech shows that I listen to, and I feel like I'm really smart. John Luther here in the feedback from last week says, Mike, I'm about 10 weeks older than you, and a lot of your references hit. I never knew about the portable Commodore 64, though. That is so cool. Yeah, look it up. It's called the SX64. This sucker was big, but it was awesome, man. I wish I still had that. Surprisingly, I've never seen Top Gun all the way through. We didn't have cable growing up, so I just saw part of it at friends' houses from time to time. Yeah, I didn't see it either for a very long time, but it is such a good movie. A nice remembrance of your friend Steve as part of the episode. Sharing how you feel about it, though, is likely going to help someone out there. I lost a friend to a car accident 30 years ago now, and I still sometimes wonder how much he'd have liked some movie or album that would have been right up his alley. That's the exact same thing I feel about Steve. We are so alike that it's the exact same thing. Like, everything we talked about was baseball because he was my catcher all through Corey League. It was Mike on the mound. I mean, I can still remember like seeing the scorebooks because my dad was always the scorekeeper for our little league team. And I could picture the scorebook. It had a green cover and he had multiple of these because we'd play tons of games every summer. And it'd always be the lineup would always have like a leadoff hitter, second hitter, and it would be Brugan, because that was Steve's last name, Rallman, Weber, 3, 4, and 5. That was where we always hit in the lineup. And I can just picture that. So we are always talking baseball. So like there's so many times like I would have loved to have gotten his take on Yadier Molina because he was a catcher. And Steve's been gone long enough that Yadi was playing when Steve was still here with us, but I think he would have been amazed to see the longevity of Yadi's career and the achievements that Yadi has made. And just to hang with him. Because, I mean, Steve and I played slow pitch softball right before his death. We were on a slow pitch softball team. Well, I'll share that some other time, when I do the show about Steve. But, yeah, the time's coming. We'll have a Steve show. But you're exactly right. I would love to sit down and have his take on a lot of things. And John continues, I think I might have heard about you going to Disneyland soon. Are you going to do a trip report with yourself or more chat about it in an episode with other co-hosts? I'm really curious if there is one single thing that you're looking forward to most. What is it? I still fondly remember running through the letters of California outside the parks my last visit. Yeah, that'd be cool. I think that was over at California Adventure. I talk about this kind of on Friday's show, so spoiler there. But I think what I'm really looking forward to the most is just being there. And I know that's kind of like a wimpy answer, but I've just always wanted to be there. I want to walk up to the gates of Disneyland. Like that's where Walt was. I want to go to the train station that really kind of is the link back to Marceline. Like Walt was from Missouri and he grew up as a young boy seeing trains in Missouri, and he never lost his love of trains, which I've always been amazed by trains too. And he took that, and that eventually became the reason why Disneyland was built. So being at the train station, riding the train, actually finally getting to see the firehouse after everybody talks about it with the light, the candle, the lantern, walking down Main Street where Walt actually walked. That's it. I mean, the rides and everything, the food, I mean, we're going to be eating it up. Don't get me wrong. I'm with Scott. We're going to have a good time, but just breathing the air of Disneyland, being in Disneyland is going to be something that I never thought would happen for me. And I think it might actually happen this weekend. I'm so excited. I'm so blessed. Okay, a little bit more feedback here. My good friend Michelle down in Boynton Beach, South Florida says, "Hi, Mike. Finally caught up on all the episodes and had so many comments, but I feel like it's too late now. So I'll just comment on this episode. It's never too late. I love comments. They're so fun. I'm like you, and I don't see very many movies. I love the original Top Gun, though, and heard nothing but good reviews about Top Gun Maverick. So I had to see it, and it did not disappoint. Best movie I've seen in a very long time for sure. I rewatched the original the night before, as it had been probably 30 years since I had seen that. Very glad I did, so it was fresh in my mind. There were so many great emotional scenes. The ones with Iceman got me teary for sure. Yes, and how cool was it? If you don't know, Val Kilmer really does have throat cancer or some kind of affliction where he cannot speak. And the way that they did that with the text messages, super creative. But that was touching how they got to have that moment. Oh my gosh. Don't make me cry again, because I cried in the movie. And it's like two dudes, like, but it was emotional. You're exactly right. Michelle continues, "Thanks for sharing memories of your friend Steve. Looking forward to more when you are ready." On another note, Disneyland is so close and I can't wait to follow along. All right, Michelle, hashtag BOGPATDL. We're ready. I got to pack one. I got to get a haircut first. I've been holding off on my haircut, so I have my perfect haircut for the trip. And I'm telling you what, man, I am shaggy right now because I've been waiting. All right, Trisha Hellwig here in the feedback. Thanks for being here, Trisha. She says, "We just got back from seeing Top Gun. His hubby was in Costa Rica for 2 weeks. Well, that must have been nice. It was a phenomenal movie. Definitely gave me the eye sweats, our term for crying. I like that. I'm going to use that from now on. The best part of seeing it in theaters was the way the engines would vibrate through the chair and then into your chest. A must see. P.S. Have a great time in Disneyland." I will. And you're exactly right, Trisha. Oh my gosh. I'm glad I did see it in a theater. And it was also cool because like the crowd would be like, oh, you could hear other people because it was packed when we were in there on Father's Day. It was awesome. And finally, my good friend George, who is formerly from Hawaii. Shaka. Love George. He's such a good guy. "Hey, Mike, I was finally able to watch Top Gun Maverick over the weekend. It was an amazing film. I like the callbacks to the original movie as well. I grew up on on Air Force bases, so I was used to hearing the screams of the jets as they flew around and the sonic booms when they broke the sound barrier. Your story about Steve hits close to home for me too. I lost my wingman Jay a handful of years ago. He came into my life at a pivotal point in time as I was entering adulthood. Because I was a military brat, I only would have friends for a few years before it was time to pick up and move on. Our stop in Hawaii was our last, so the bond Jay and I had lasted over 25 years. I also at times find it difficult not to tear up over the loss of such a great friend. Great show and can't wait for your Southern California trip. Be sure to have a chimichanga as well. I usually get mine at Edelweiss Snacks, which is located opposite the entrance of the Matterhorn bobsleds." You know what, George? Having a wingman like that is a treasure. Even if we don't get to have them for our entire life, I've pictured, I've tried to come grips with that because it wasn't fair. Because the guy who hit Steve and killed everybody in Steve's vehicle lived, and he was the idiot that was drunk and going over 100 miles an hour. But how lucky was I to have a friend like Steve for that long? Because I had him through all the way up into my adulthood, and we both became teachers. So yeah, your wingman Jay, I'm sure he was a special guy. That's very cool. And it does break my heart that we lose these people, but how lucky are we that we had them? All right, let's get to a happier again, 2 weeks in a row. Okay, I got to stop this. This is why we haven't done the Steve show, but we will. But real quick, I wanted to talk about today's topic because I got to get a whole lot of stuff done. We got to still do 6 more podcasts before Saturday. Because I don't ever like to leave you without a show, and I'm not going to do that while I'm in Disneyland. I will not do that for you guys. But I wanted to give you a couple quick memories I had about Lambert St. Louis International Airport, which is our airport here in St. Louis. And as I grew up in St. Louis, at my old, like it was as a kid, we always lived within 10 minutes of the airport. Where I lived in Florissant, Missouri, was just like a hop, skip, and a jump away from the airport. Now, here's the thing. When I was a kid, Lambert St. Louis International Airport was a major airport. It was a big hub for TWA. Now, if you don't remember, TWA was a huge airline in the 70s and 80s. And this is when my memories of TWA or of Lambert kind of take place. Now, you might say, Mike, how do you have all these memories of Lambert St. Louis International Airport? You didn't fly. You're right. I didn't fly. When I was a kid, we never went on vacations except for one time. I've said this many times. My dad was a catcher for a guy who pitched for the Phillies, and he flew our family to Clearwater for spring training. And then when spring training broke, we drove his conversion van from spring training up to Philadelphia so that his 2 poodles, his 2 dogs, could get from spring training up to Philly for the regular season. And because he needed somebody to get the van and the dogs from Florida up to Philly, he paid for our family to fly down, stay in Florida, and then drive to Philly for him. So that was very cool. So we got to take a plane ride. I was scared to death. This is one of the reasons probably I didn't like flying, but I don't know why I didn't like it, but I just didn't like it. But I do remember that we flew an airline down to Florida. It was called Ozark Airlines. Now, you may remember this if you're from the Midwest. You probably don't if you're from any other places. They were eventually purchased by TWA, but it was a cool airline. And here's why I liked it so much. They always had commercials on during the Cardinals radio and TV games. So you'd always hear commercials for Ozark Airlines. So that immediately made me want to fly them. Also, their planes were very cool looking. They were white planes. They were kind of like the TWA plane that was like a white plane with the red, what's called livery, or the decals. But it was a white plane with green, and it said Ozark on the tail. And it was really cool looking. But I know we flew them down to Florida, into Tampa, and it was a neat thing. But my memories of our airport were mostly from taking my grandparents to the airport and how fancy the airport was. And I'm thinking about this because we're going to the airport on Saturday, and I'm excited because on this trip, besides for getting to go to Disneyland, I get to go to 3 new airports that I've never been to. I'll get to go to Denver because we have a layover in Denver. We're landing at Long Beach, and on the way home, we connect through Love Field, where Kennedy unfortunately passed through when he was assassinated. My dad told me, that's the airport. So you have a little history there. So I love aviation. So I'm loving that I'll get to experience 3 new airports. So I was thinking about growing up going to Lambert, and it was mostly taking my grandparents because they did travel. We never really did. We didn't really have the means, but my grandparents did. Because my grandpa, I remember when I was a kid, he went with a group of people from our church down to Haiti a couple of different times, down to the island of Haiti. And they went down there, and they would go down for like a week or 2, and they would build churches. They built a church while they were down there. And he would come back with all these pictures of all they built this church from scratch, all these kids that they would meet and they would give out gifts to and stuff. It was very cool. And my grandpa also went a couple of times with people from the church over to the Holy Land in the Middle East. And also, my grandparents went on a few like cruises on Princess Cruise Line. So I pictured my grandparents like, were they on the Love Boat? Like seriously, because it was that time period. It was like the early 80s, late 70s. But the thing I remember about our airport was because now our airport, obviously TWA was purchased by American Airlines right around like the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know what the history is. But Lambert was huge back when I was a kid. Like it was like a major airport like Chicago or like Atlanta. Maybe not that big, or LA, but it was a big deal. Now our airport isn't that big of a deal. I mean, Southwest is kind of a mini hub here in St. Louis, but it's not as big a deal as it used to be. But I just remember when we would take my grandparents to the airport, it was so cool. I loved doing it because, again, remember, I'm old as dirt. So when we would take them, we got to go all the way to the gate with them. We would walk them all the way till they walked to the jetway. And I was, I didn't like to fly, but I love seeing the planes. I just remember like looking with my face up against the glass at the big jets, and looking out onto the tarmac and looking out onto the jetways and hearing all the sounds and all that good stuff. It's just the thing I do remember about our airport, particularly if you've ever been through St. Louis Lambert, is that it's got these kind of copper domes. You can look it up. It's Fly STL on social media, but it's got these like copper green domes in the main terminal, which we used to go into. Now the funniest thing is, now that I'm flying, I never ever get to go into the main terminal because Southwest flies out of Terminal 2, which was an addition. It was added on probably 30 years ago. And so you never go into the main fancy part. I never get to go into the main fancy part of the airport because it's blocked off. The two terminals are not connected anymore. So I never get to go to the cool part, which is the part I always want to go to. Now I did. Here's the hack though. I did get to go in the main part the time we flew on Frontier a couple of years ago down for Summit. And one of the reasons I booked Frontier was because they flew out of the main terminal. Now I hated flying on Frontier. It was terrible, but I did get to fly out of the main terminal and I took so many pictures. I loved it. I also got to go to a social media event where we got to go all around the airport. It was kind of like a tweet up, and that was really super cool. So I've been around there, but I mean, as a kid, I remember like just the airport was fancy. Like people dressed in like sport coats, women wore dresses. They had a lot of like art, it felt like in the airport back then. I know my dad and his friend, again, I talked about his friend Darwin. They used to take me as a little kid to Six Flags to go to the arcade. I know they took me to the airport because the airport had an arcade. And I know we went to the airport to their arcade many times. I went with them many times to the airport too to play pinball. I remember that. Here's another crazy, like random story I have is that I remember coming out of the airport one night, and I don't know if it was like we went with to play in the arcade, like my dad and Darwin or what. I was little, but I remember we were in the parking garage at the airport. This is crazy. And I just remember I was with my dad. I wasn't with my mom, I was with my dad. And I just remember like somehow like we were in the middle of a shootout. Like there were people shooting guns in the parking garage. And I just remember my dad like, get down. And we were ducking behind a car and there were like police chasing somebody, but they were shooting at each other in the parking garage at Lambert Airport. And I to this day, I gotta call my dad and fact check this, but I know this happened. And this could be a nightmare, but I'm 100% positive this actually happened. And, yeah, I remember coming out and all this stuff, but the airport was such a cool place to go because you just saw people coming from all parts of the world because this was an international airport, especially back then with it being a hub for TWA. I mean, you would see people from all corners of the world just kind of coming and going. And everybody was dressed up and they had fancy restaurants at the airport back then. We don't have that anymore. We have, I mean, a couple places that are okay. Um, nothing fancy. But here's another kind of funny thing about Lambert Airport. I told you that way back a long time ago that I used to work as a mobile DJ because my dad owned a mobile DJ company here in St. Louis when I was in high school and college. So when they opened the big second terminal, it's called Terminal 2. If you ever fly out of St. Louis and you fly Southwest, you're going to fly through Terminal 2. They had like a groundbreaking for that terminal. Like it was a, christening for that before it opened. And they had a big party down in the baggage claim, like what was going to be like where they handled the bags. And they had a big party. And guess who was the DJ for the christening party? Yep, this guy. I DJ'd the party for all the Southwest employees when they had the official opening of Terminal 2. So I got to, DJ back there for all the Southwest employees when they opened up Terminal 2 on the before it even opened. It was kind of cool. It was, I wish I would have been as curious about things like how everything worked as back then I was like, I think I was probably a senior in high school, maybe a freshman in college. I didn't really care. I just wanted the money. But now I would have loved to kind of looked around and see all like how everything works and functions. But I wonder, like, what are your memories of your airport growing up? Because I loved getting to that. It was such a fancy place. That it was such an exotic place. I never really got to fly out of Lambert, but I loved going there. Like, I love the idea of it was like a little city of people coming and going from all corners of the world. And you got to see gigantic airplanes and you got to see them like taking off and landing. You got to see restaurants. You got to see people dressed up. You got to ride on the moving walkways. There was a replica of the Spirit of St. Louis plane that Lindbergh flew over the Atlantic that was always hanging in the main terminal. I loved looking at that thing. It was so cool. It was such an exotic place to go that was 10 minutes from my house. In 10 minutes from my house, people were getting on airplanes and going all around the world. While my world was so small in Florissant, Missouri, 10 minutes from my house, people were connecting to Japan, to England, to Australia, to South America. Pretty remarkable. I love going there. Even as a kid, it was an exotic place to go. Even if you weren't getting on the planes, being that close to travel was a pretty special thing. So let me know in the feedback. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. What was your airport experience like as a kid? Was it so exciting to go see the planes? Was it so exciting to go pick up grandma and grandpa or drop them off for their flights? It was for me. I loved it. It was amazing. And it kind of still is. I love being at airports. What are your thoughts? Some people probably hate airports. I think they're pretty amazing. All right. Give me your feedback here on Patreon. Again, it's patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. And we'll be back again with another show next week. So until then, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.